I took the metro home, then realized I drove to work. That was a long night. I dropped my pants when going through TSA. For those who fly in the super early morning, it can be rough. I purposely didn't drink coffee so I could sleep on the plane. I was on the security line and did the normal routine of taking stuff out of my pockets and putting them in my laptop bag. Then off with the shoes, placed on top of my luggage. Then off comes the belt as usual. Then of course when you take off your belt, you take off your pants. Nope, damn it. Put them back on and WTF'd for a moment as I finished up in security. Luckily not that many. People fly at like 4:30 a.m. Throw candy in trash. I was playing guitar and reached to grab a cracker. Then I ate my pick. Stare at wrapper. I made the best ever chicken stock, lovingly simmered for 24 hours. Then, without thinking, I put the colander in the sink and tipped the stock down the drain, saving the scraps. I cried. There was a 6.0 earthquake at about 3 a.m., so I was asleep. The quake lasted 20 seconds, and I woke up about 16 seconds in, standing in the hallway hugging a vase. What the fuck? Cup of coffee in left hand, phone in the right hand. Go to my room, take a sip of my phone, and throw coffee on the bed. The night before my very first day at work where I have to bring my own lunch. I got all the ingredients out to make my sandwich for tomorrow, and immediately after I made it, I walked into the living room, turned on the TV, and ate it. I used to work at McDonald's drive-thru. 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So I had been hardwired to say, "Welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you today?" Every single time I heard the headset beep. Straight up Pavlovian. One day there was a particularly wily fly that was always just a second ahead of me. I became very focused on killing this fly. I don't know how many times I said it before a coworker finally stopped laughing long enough to tell me. But it turns out I'd been saying, "Welcome to McDonald's. How can I kill you today?" To every car in the drive-thru. Not one customer even paused or acknowledged the fact that Ronald McDonald threatened them with murder. They just wanted their goddamn nuggets. I sat there at an intersection in suburban Palo Alto at 11 p.m., patiently waiting for the stop sign to change. Night before last, I went to the backyard to bring the dog into the house. Autopilot moved my feet 10 or so steps out the door, telling the dog to come in. My brain then caught up and remembered the dog was in bed, and I was indeed approaching a black bear that was eating watermelon rinds from the trash can. Turned around and went back home because I forgot my car keys. I was driving. Jumped out of bed frantically, put my clothes on. Brushed all the sarid on my floor under my bed, paused, and realized it's 3 a.m. in the morning and I don't have school. I'm 23. As a teenager, I worked at McDonald's. My McDonald's was 24 hours, and during the summer, I worked the overnight shift. My sleep schedule would get all messed up. My parents woke me up for dinner one evening. I zombie walked to the table and sat down. My dad asked me to say grace. I bow my head and say, "Thank you for choosing McDonald's. May I take your order?" Once I was laying in bed, very tired, watching TV. All the characters on the show piled into a car together, and I thought for a second that I forgot to put my seatbelt on, before realizing I was safely in bed and nowhere near a car. Tried to turn the sun off. Bad hangover. Opened my back door, feeling for the light switch. No light switch. The light was day. Was jogging late at night. A guy reached out his hand in front of me as I passed. I high-fived him. Turns out he was hailing a taxi. Let's just say that now, whenever I'm looking for my phone, the first thing I check is to see if it's currently in my hands. When I was in high school and living on the family farm, I used to feed the horses and barn cats every morning. Waking up at 6 a.m. for this, as a 16-year-old, guaranteed that I was half asleep. So, I grabbed the cat food like I always did, walked to the table where my cat's bowl was like I always did, and poured some in. My cat always jumped up on the table right away to start eating right away. And one morning, as something jumped up in front of me, I absent-mindedly pet it as usual. The hair felt a little rough, so I looked down, and instead of my friendly orange cat, there was a skunk. Just chilling there, eating the cat food while I pet its back. I woke up from a deep sleep, having the feeling that there was an earthquake going on. So naturally, I called to my wife, who I realized was in the living room, reading, and asked her if everything was okay, and she asked why. I said there was just an earthquake. Is everything okay? She said, no, you just farted in your sleep and woke yourself up. I went back to bed. I had a very long day of computer drafting, think plus 12 hours sitting and staring at 0.5mm lines, and got really lost, so I asked the person next to me what the hell I did wrong, because they seemed like they would absolutely have the explanation. I got most of the way through the answer before I realized not only had I asked my frazzled reflection a question, but I also calmly and matter-of-factly responded. I went home after that. I meant to put a brand new roll of toilet paper on the roll, and instead just plopped it in the toilet. 1. Unwrap candy. My sister had a brain fart and left the water running in the kitchen. I went to turn it off and flipped the kitchen light switch. Repeatedly. Then started cussing when the switch wouldn't cut the water off. Then got my toolbox and started taking the faceplate off the light switch so I could see why it wasn't cutting the water off. At that point, my other sister, who witnessed all of this, kindly pointed out that I had lost my ever-loving mind and cut the water off herself. Tapped a picture in the newspaper, hoping to see the full article. Took me a good 5 seconds to realize where I messed up. Drove to work and realized when I got to the parking lot that I forgot to drop the kids at school. The kids knew too and stayed quiet thinking they'd get to miss school. Love those sneaky little devils. I once got my car impounded via Brain Autopilot. I lived across the street from a gas station and didn't drive very often. Once I was filling it up, went inside to buy something, forgot I was getting gas, and walked home. A few days later, I reported my car stolen since I couldn't find it in the apartment garage. About a month later, I get a call from the police saying my car had gone up for auction, and only then was it discovered it had been reported stolen. I had to pay about $1,500 in impound fees to get it back. Definitely one of the dumbest things I've ever done. Walked into the bathroom at work to pee, and instead of unzipping my fly, I unbuttoned my dress shirt, took it off, then took off my white undershirt as well. Then realized I was standing shirtless at a urinal and WTF'd. Rubbed aftershave in my hair and put gel on my face. The worst part was that after I put the aftershave in my hair, I laughed at myself, thought, fuck, what was all that about? And then added the hair gel to my skin. Trying to get into a random person's car because I thought it was my friend's. The person whose car I was attempting to break into was very terrified. When I was around 13 or 14, I woke up in the middle of the night in my own bed and room and thought to myself, I need to go home before my parents realize I'm not home. So I sneak out of the house, part of me obviously aware that my parents were sleeping and I needed to be quiet, and walked a block away. Then I realized I had been in my own room and just thought, what the hell am I doing? So I walked back and snuck back into bed. So weird. Grabbed milk from the fridge, grabbed a dinner plate from the cupboard. Began tilting the gallon jug toward the dish. Was about to pour myself a plate of milk when my mom walks by and asks what the fuck I'm doing. After an 8-hour day of cashiering at Target, which has so many robotic small talk conversations, I stopped at the dollar store. The conversation went something like, cashier. Hi, how are you? Me. Good. How are you? Cashier. I'm good, thanks. Me. That's good. Did you find everything okay today? That conversation was had to the effect of everyone in line and the cashier looking at me like I was psycho. Applying deodorant on my armpit with my shirt still on. The two that come to mind are while playing Xbox, I got up to get a drink, then sit back down and can't find my freaking controller. I'm tearing cushions apart, looking under stuff, looking in drawers, etc. Turns out I took a soda out of the fridge and put the controller in the spot I took it from. The other one happened the other day. drove home from work, parked, went upstairs, opened the door, started to take off shirt. Then I remembered it was the middle of my shift, and I hadn't left to go home, but just go buy a drink. Swished my mouthwash for a solid 30 seconds, and then just spit it on the floor where I was standing. I was trimming a raw chicken breast and saw a spider in my kitchen. I screamed and immediately threw the chicken breast at the spider and embedded it in the meat. Whoops. Drove 20 minutes to my old house after I moved, was just zoning out. Turned up at work with the landline phone and my toddler's lunch. I picked up my toothbrush to brush my teeth, but I also had the urge to pees, so I obviously tossed my toothbrush into the toilet. Vigorously picking my nose while holding a cigarette and driving, crammed lit cigarette up my nose. I was getting ready for work and had a contact in one hand and a vitamin in the other. Popped the contact in my mouth and washed it down with a glass of water. I'm sure the stomach acid took care of it. Painting a picture, take a drink from the paintbrush water instead of my coffee. I tried to mail my buddy a check, and it had been a while since I mailed anything. Long enough to forget how mail works, apparently. What I did was I wrote my name and address in the center, and his name in the upper left-hand corner. The letter then got returned to me. But still, my first thought wasn't, whoops, I failed at mailing this check. Instead it was, well, I guess this stamp is old, and the price of stamps went up. So I put another stamp on it and sent it again. To myself. Again. My mailman must think I'm a child. I was making ramen noodles and a pitcher of Crystal Light at the same time. Berry-flavored ramen is not good. I found myself taking a bath with all my clothes on. Never told anyone. Just went back to sleep. I am currently at university and live on the 5th floor of a dormitory. All the floors are identical, other than the colors of the paint on the wall. One day I was taking the elevator up to the 5th floor, and I was sending a text to my mother. When I arrived at my floor, a person I had never seen before got on the elevator. I consciously noted that it was weird, because I knew everyone on my floor, but I walked to my room and walked in. My living room seemed slightly off, and then a girl walked into the living room and casually goes, "What are you doing in my room?" That's when I realized I had gotten off on an earlier floor, and I just absent-mindedly walked into someone else's room. Needless to say, I got out of that room really fast after realizing what I had done. Leaving work, I had my hat in one hand and cell phone in the other. Something misfired, and I put the cell phone on my head and hat in my pocket. There was a flashing realization that something wasn't right while standing there holding a phone to my bald spot and sporting a look of bewilderment. I wish someone had seen it.